Well, it is another time. Well, wait, it's not another time. It's not, it's evening. Um, Time is all relative. I think at this point in time, I love all the memes that are going around that are like, it's some day as opposed to what our real days are. It's Wednesday, which means it's time once again for Josh to join us for Positive Talk with Josh. Hey, Josh, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank
Good.
you, Matt. How are you?
Honestly, I'm going to be honest, Josh. I'm in a little bit of a foul mood right now, which is off because I've been actually pretty positive the last couple of days, but tonight I'm just a little off. So there you go.
Yeah,
And I think it has a lot to do with the realization of what has happened today for kids. I think it's a major bummer, man. And that's just sort of, all of a lot of our, if you and I as, seniors, if we were seniors, we would be missing out on a lot of stuff right now. And I guess it just hit me. I just sort of like that empathetic sort of, I don't know, crisis, or I don't know what you'd call it, but it was just like, oh man, this kind of sucks for all those people, all those life experiences that they're not going to have. So, anyways, I think I'm processing. Actually, thanks, Josh, because I think it's the better out than in. Isn't that what
yeah,
it always is, Josh?
yeah. No, that was a crazy announcement today. Um, I saw it coming. I kind of felt like that was inevitable, but even so, when it's official, it makes it very real, obviously. And yeah, heartbreaking for so many kids. My kindergartner cried, finding out that she
Oh,
wasn't going back to the school building this year and see her friends and see her teacher. She does, the online WebEx that they have set up. Her teacher is amazing, does an incredible job. But yeah, heartbreaking, and that's kindergarten. Um, I talked to a lot of kids today. Had a lot of phone calls, and man, it's tough. There's a lot of it's a really hard thing, especially seniors, eighth graders, anyone who is playing a spring sport, especially if your spring sport is your main sport.
yeah.
Um, Kids who had like a major activity, like the school musical, for example, that kind of thing, something they were really looking forward to that really requires like to be at the school to make it happen. Heartbreaking, yeah, absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's just and I think I was seeing a lot of the teachers post some, just like, we're going to be missing the kids, and it was just like, yuck, man, because I know that, both my parents were Benlow Pine School District teachers, and they both really cared about their kids, and so to see this right now is just sort of a really difficult situation. And I know those parents those teachers, well, the teachers could be parents, that they're missing those kids because they spend their lives, pouring into these kids. And so I think that's a bummer. So I'm sorry your kiddo cried. That
Yeah, no,
sucks.
I think there were a lot of tears today. I'm sure that there were a lot of tears. Students, parents, teachers, obviously. I know, I have good friends that are teachers that just absolutely love their kids and they've built, such a community and culture of good things, and to have that like gone. And one of my friends who teaches fifth grade was saying, they lost out, and there's kids that they just know they'll never see again.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just know that like that kid's going to move on to middle school. I'm not going to see them again. I did hear one thing encouraging. I was talking to an eighth grader today, and I said, "Well, you're probably not going back to your school again." And they said, "Oh no, I'll definitely go back. I have a teacher that I'm for sure going to go see fairly regularly when I'm in high school still, just because they're really important to me." And so I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." Like that was kind
Yeah.
of an encouraging note.
Yeah, that is cool. I mean, I guess that is a reality of the fact that you know, those kids can go do that. I mean, especially on
Yeah.
those teachers. I think I remember, oh man, middle school. I think it was in high school or middle school, going back and seeing, one of my elementary school teachers. So yeah, I think that is a good reminder, very much. So, I guess, uh, this has been some interesting news today. It's interesting for parents too,
Mm.
because the new reality is okay. What does that look like for well, what does it look like for you, Josh, as a parent now? The reality is, well, it doesn't look quite the same. So, what I guess what's going through your mind right now, and how to help the kids, and how can we reach out and help other adults go through this? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so I guess my first thought is I posted something on Facebook in the last couple days that's on my regular Facebook page, or it's on. I have a Facebook page for my mentoring called Prep Success Coach, and it's on there also. And but it was talking about what do you do when you lose identity. So I think that we've been in an identity crisis for quite some time, just culturally. But right now, I think is a major like ramp up of that, of where you lose your sports teams, you lose your clubs, your activities, people who are losing jobs, people who are losing things that they've been passionately spending their time doing or building, and they feel like they don't have that anymore. So then, who are you, and how do you find yourself in the midst of that? So I think that's a huge component to this.
Mm-hmm.
As far as for me directly, so we have a 18-year-old who's already graduated high school. We have a 6-year-old who is a kindergartner, and then we have a foster kid that is younger, who lives with us right now. And so my wife has been homeschooling our 6-year-old, and she's amazing. Emily is my wife and does a great job. But with our little foster, and then doing the homeschooling, like we're really busy. We're really like the days are extremely like planned, and there's not a lot of. I've kind of seen this sense of there's really two kinds of situations. There's more than that. Anytime you say there's two kinds of something, I'm always like, you're limiting life. Like, don't say there's two kinds. Like when someone says there's two kinds of people, I'm like, yeah, right. You get out a little more. But I've seen like two kind of major differences. One is the group that just has ample amount of free time right now and doesn't know what to do with themselves. And then the other is where you're like, oh my gosh, my day is programmed. My day is full. Like I have kids in the house that have like major requirements. And so I am not finding this free time. So I think that that's where a lot of parents are. I just had a great conversation with a mom today talking about like, how do we reach out and help parents who are going to be feeling really overwhelmed? Like they were feeling pretty overwhelmed already.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, oh man, there's no relief in sight. And so, yeah, I think that was kind of my main thought today. So you mentioned you were having kind of like a down day. I had a little bit of a down night last night. I just stuff gets heavy, and you have responsibilities, and you just feel these things, and you feel what you feel. Much better day today. I had an amazing day. Just really felt good about it. And I think like the main thing I'm thinking about right now is you've got to strategize big picture long term for your work and for life and for all those things. But you really have to live in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't get caught up in are things going to look like 2 weeks from now? What are things going to look like 6 months from now? Like you've got to pick like, what do you want for this day? And I think that, the more present we can stay and the more in this day of like, who do I want to be today? What's one major thing I want to accomplish? Who's someone I want to connect with today? If we live in those ways, this becomes less overwhelming. I think it's really overwhelming. I'm sure there's a ton of parents, kids, teachers, school age people who are either in school or have family members that are in school. They've got majorly overwhelmed today because you're like, when you look big picture, you're like, oh, big picture, this is rough. This is gnarly.
Yeah.
And it was like you're saying, it was heavy today when you heard that announcement. And you're like, oh man. So how do you kind of like reel it in and be like, I've got today. First of all, we're not even promised tomorrow. Like we worry about tomorrow, but we don't know.
Right.
We don't know what tomorrow's going
to. So Josh, I gotta, you said one thing, and I think it's important that, I think all of us have this, plan that we so I went to Uganda a couple of years ago, and the famous thing was so we're going to make a plan, and then we're going to plan to change the plan. Basically, is what we're going to do. And I think honestly we're in that spot. I don't know how many people have okay, I got to get these 5 things done, and I think the one thing honestly that you were just saying, I think that is important is what's the one thing. What
Right.
what's the reality of okay, hey, I want to do one thing today, and what does that one thing look like? And I think that's an important distinguishing factor is that we can't necessarily in these climates of now we're the you know I'm not, but you and your wife are the educators too. you know your plan is completely shot. I mean, you've got one thing that you can do today, and whatever that is, you got to figure out the one thing. I think the other thing that I took away too, Josh, that I think is important that you just said is that I'm going to call that one person. I'm gonna reach out. I'm going to do that one act to reach out. I also had a thought, Josh, as you were kind of going through this. You said you kind of had a down night. I mean, other than sleeping, do you think that when you woke up, was there something that you just said, "Hey, I gotta do in order to make this better," and my lights just turned off? Did you see how dark it got all of a sudden there,
Yeah.
Josh?
Yeah.
So while we go to you and your important
Yeah.
thoughts, I'm going to turn the lights back on here.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of having a morning routine and having a way of getting things like going in a positive way for you in the morning. So uh, one of the things I do, so this is my personal routine. I encourage everyone to like figure out the routine that works for you. Here's what works for me. When I first wake up, before I get out of bed, I say a little prayer just for the day and for a few people in my life that are like kind of the first ones that come to mind in my immediate family and that kind of thing. So when I can remember to, when I'm not so tired that I just fall back to sleep, I try to have that be the first thing I do when I wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I'm in the shower, I try to take just a moment and think about the things that I'm grateful for. And then I put together, after I've like gotten, that usually gets me in a good mood. I think like I've got warm water, I've got a house, I've got breakfast when I want to go downstairs and eat. And so I get kind of in that like mode of like positive thinking. And
Yeah.
then once I'm in that mode, then I think about, okay, what are the things today? And I don't do a to-do list. I just do like, what's the most important thing? So like, what's the thing today? Like, who do I want to be today? And I'll often do it that way in less of like, what do I want to accomplish, but more of a who do I want to be today? So I'll say, for example, like, I want to be an encourager today who just like encourages the people that I have contact with. And so then I want to get in that mindset. So that's kind of like this morning, like last night I was just tired, I think was the main thing.
Right.
I got a little worn out, and it's just, it happens. You got stuff you have to do. You have responsibilities. We've got a kid in the house that doesn't sleep particularly well. And so there's no straightforward nights of sleep of where like you go to bed and then you're waking up in the morning. You're gonna get woken up. So it was just it all kind of came together. I was just a little tired last night. So this morning it's like, today's a new opportunity. What am I gonna do with today? And then I found that for me, in this season especially, I'm my most positive and the best version of me when I'm focused on today. Mm-hmm. When I'm like, yes, I do want a game plan. I'm kind of a strategic, like look down the road, think long-term kind of person with a lot of aspects of my life. But I'm really trying right now to be like, what can be done today? Like what's going to be fulfilling? What's going to help someone? And then also, I have a unique thing of where I have like a lot of phone calls and meetings scheduled during my day. Right. So I know I'm not going to ever be like lonely, and I'm not ever going to be like, I need more people. I know that that's going to happen. So I have to then get outside of that and be intentional of where I say like, who am I going to reach out to? Who's like not on the schedule? And it doesn't have to, I never make a list because that's overwhelming, but I like to like think of a person. Like, okay, that person came to mind, going to send them a text, going to give them a call, going to do something. And so that's kind of like my rebound move. That's my like, if I can get going that way in the morning, then that's going to like drive me in the right direction.
And I think one of the things you said too is that I think it's important to highlight is that whole situation of the gratitude. You know, that act of gratitude and realizing that there is something important for us to be. I think that's an important thing because I think in these moments of this, overwhelming just darkness, to realize that we do have things. We have a roof over our head potentially. We have running water. We have electricity. These are important things, and while the bills might be piling up or that sort of thing, in that moment, to know that we at least have a roof over our head, or if you've got kids, you got kids that get up and they give you a hug. It's looking at those little things because I think those are extremely important things to recognize and remember.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
100%. And one of the things I'm challenging myself to do too is to really look inwardly and find ways to be grateful and content with the things that I know could never be taken away from me.
mm-hmm.
So, for example, I've got a roof over my head. I like my house. I've got a refrigerator that's got some really yummy food in it. I've got, an awesome family around me. Like I'm really content. But who am I and how do I feel and what's going on if that goes away? And I'm not saying that this is a situation where that's going to go away, but ultimately, I want to be a person where my contentment, where my why and my identity and all of that is wrapped up in things that don't go away, that they're the attributes of like who I am and who I see myself and where I see myself in the universe and my spirituality and all of those elements coming together so that I'm able to be content so that when stuff does get rocky in life, because life gets rocky,
Yeah,
life
yeah, it does.
uh, and the things that we think are and I don't want to say that I'm not totally I don't want to say that I'm not completely agreeing with you. I am completely agreeing with you that like the roof over my head is like where my gratitude starts, right? I
Mm-hmm.
get in the shower and I'm like, warm water. I am thankful for hot
it,
shower. Like
until
that
the
is
until the water runs out, and then we're not thankful anymore.
right, right, exactly. And so I don't want my gratitude and my attitude and my perception of like how my life is to be wrapped up in that hot water. Because if the hot water goes away, then am I no longer grateful for the life I have? So I think it's it's not like it's being grateful for those things, absolutely 100%, and that's how I start my day. And then it's like taking it that next step of like, who am I if everything goes away?
Mm-hmm.
And really just like finding that identity that can't be stripped away, and that like just peace that comes with that.
Yeah, and we've titled this "Positive Talk with Josh," and in your conversations with me, Josh, I think you are very positive. You're a very positive individual. You exude that positivity. But I want to encourage people that are viewing, or if they've viewed before, or that this is something that we're giving you some thoughts on why we feel positive. But like Josh and I both have shared today, we all go through these moments that we're not necessarily all super positive, and we're giving you some tips and advice to just sort of deal with those emotions in the best way possible. I don't know, Josh. Have you done much like foreign travel, like mission work
I
or
have
anything like
not.
that?
No,
Okay.
no, I have not done. I have done basically zero foreign travel. Um, Lived in Hawaii for a while,
Oh, that
and
was that was rough. I'm sure, Josh. That
yeah,
was that was really rough.
and then other than that, I am very much a Northwest. I'm about as Bend as far as time spent in Bend as you get, at least for like my how many years I've been alive. I know you're similar. I mean, we've spent a lot of time in Central Oregon and in
Yeah.
Bend.
Yeah, I grew up here, and so did you, Josh. But I have been fortunate to see, and I think that's see some poverty and some other things that I think for me just gives me a reality of, okay, this is what we're going through is tough. But after going to Uganda and seeing people that truly didn't have food or they weren't sure where their food was coming from, and yet the happiness, the joy that was on their faces, was just really interesting. And so I guess it kind of for me put it all in perspective, and to realize that yes, right now in this moment it might be really difficult, but we can look at the silver lining, and I think that's also the important part. Um, what else has been going on through your mind, Josh? I mean, what's been going in your head, and what would you like to share with people?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've been thinking about is it's kind of what I was saying earlier, but just to elaborate on it a little bit is like you've got today. You know you've got today. And so what are you going to do with today? Who are you going to be today? What are you going to focus on today? What are you going to really be looking for today? And what do you hope to accomplish today? And I was talking to a college kid today who is back in school, but doing his school online. Um, so he's back home in Bend, but his school is back in session, but they're doing it all online. And he was saying, he said it so well. He said, if I do all the schoolwork that's required of me today, plus just a little bit more, then I feel good about my day.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other things he would like to do. He would love to hang out with his friends, but he's made that choice to stay home and not do that. He would love to go to the gym, but the gym is not open. He would love to do all these other things. And he's like, I found this one thing that if I accomplish that today, then I feel good about it. And when I
Mm-hmm.
go to bed at night, I'm able to sleep well and I feel good about my day. And so I think that we make things too complicated sometimes, and we make huge to-do lists and we do all these things. And sometimes you've got some crazy stuff you need to accomplish, and a big to-do list makes a lot of sense. But a lot of the time, if you can say, I've got this one important thing, and I'm going to nail it today and feel great about it, that's a really good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add some other things. Something I've been working with a lot of the kids I talk to. It's just what does a day look like for you right now? What are the good parts of the day, and what are the parts that like you could add that aren't existing right now?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, you're playing Fortnite or Minecraft or Modern Warfare, whatever. Like your gaming is, like totally understand. Like this is a season of playing games and connecting with your friends online and doing that kind of thing. But how many hours are you doing that? And can you sub something in that's going to make you feel really good for a little bit of that? So, for example, can you go for a run? Can you play the ukulele if you've got one sitting in your room that you haven't picked up in a while, that you actually remember, like, oh, that does give me joy when I do. So I think just having an organized day that isn't so organized that it's overwhelming. That's where some of us, I think, are finding ourselves is that there's not enough time in the day, um, because there is a lot of demand, and doing things from home is not as sometimes it's really productive, and other parts it's not as productive because there's all the funny uh, video conferencing things now of
Yeah.
someone walking into the room and just all that kind of stuff. That's kind of the reality we're living in right now. But I think that just bringing it back to that idea, like, what's the one thing today? What's the one thing that like I want to be? What's the
Mm-hmm.
one thing I need to accomplish? What's the one thing that like by the end of the day I'm gonna be like, yeah, that was great. I feel good about myself, and the other stuff is a bonus.
Yeah, and I think, and that is it is that, like you said, that's that one thing, So I think, we talked about last week, getting in touch with people, and I think this week is more. It's also about that one thing. What's the one thing you can do today? And I think that is important. What this is a tough question, Josh. I know we're gonna run a little long. Are you okay with that? Are you
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Okay, okay. Um, we talk a lot about this whole concept of well, you've kind of mentioned it, but not really talked about it. But if today was your last day, what does that look like for you, Josh? Do you have a picture of that? Do you have a kind of an image of saying, okay, if today was my last day and I wanted to do something that I've never done before, or I knew there were no rules, there were no, well, not necessarily rules, but there were no, boundaries of being able to do something. What does that look like for you within this happiness sphere, I guess, more than anything else?
Yeah, so I guess for me, so much of life is, and for a lot of us, but for me, this, I can't speak for how everyone else feels or thinks, but for me, it's about relationships. And so I would want to. I think if I didn't know it was my last day, and then I looked back and found out that it was my last day, if that's how life is going to work, I'd want to feel like I treated the people in that last day really well, had
Mm-hmm.
a good time with them, and enjoyed them. And we like found joy through our relationship and our time together.
Mm-hmm.
If I was going into my last day, I don't. I hate that thought because here's my problem with it. I would have so much pressure because there's so many people that I'd want to be like, I just need to talk to them. Like I just, and so then I wouldn't get to do, you know, anything
Yeah.
like really crazy, like go bungee jumping or something that
Yeah.
someone else might pick. I would just be talking to people all day.
Right.
But I would eat some really what some people might call gross food because I do like things like Funyuns and stuff like that I just don't like put on the regular diet. But if it was my last day, it would be like just bacon and
G-
Funyuns
give me
probably.
give me those 4 porterhouse steaks and the yeah, yeah.
Seriously, and just I think it was Ron Swanson who said on Parks and Rec, "Bring me all the bacon." He was went out to eat, not bring me a big portion, bring me all the bacon. I
Yeah.
think I would do that.
Well, and I think what you just said there, Josh, goes to a lot to what you value, and that is the relationships. That's the people in your lives, and so you're going to basically put those experiences of being with those people first. And not everybody has that same experience. I mean, we don't. We are different, like you were saying. But I think that's important to realize. Those important things in our lives, and especially in this time, to be putting those in a higher place of value.
Yeah,
Productivity's down. I mean, the reality is if we're working from home, that's a plus because there's a lot of people that aren't even working. But
right.
I think that that ability to just say, hey, we need to put some of these values first is important. So yeah,
Yeah, I think living every day where you can look back on it and say, I feel good about that day. Like I feel good about that day. Like I didn't accomplish necessarily, and not every day is like that gold medal day where it's like, oh my gosh, everything fell into place and I just killed it and I did this and I did that. But just to look back on your day and feel good about it, be like, I treated people well. The values that are important to me are the values I lived out, and yeah, and just to kind of like a clean
yeah,
conscience at the end of the night, where like you're about to go to bed and you're like, yeah, I tried pretty hard today. Like, I tried to do the best I could with what I've got going. Yeah, and I would say I just want to give one more thought. I think one thing in all of this that I'm talking, as I've talked to, so I get to talk to a lot of young people.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
One of the things that's like a silver lining in this that I keep hearing is young people who are just adding new things to their life. Of where it's either like, I kind of liked art and now I'm doing a ton of art. Um, One guy was telling me the other day, he's like, we bought a trampoline like 5 years ago at my house, and we used it a little bit for that first year, and then I haven't used it in years. And for the last week, like I just have been jumping on this trampoline with my
mm,
sister, and like we just are having so much fun, and we're like
cool,
really bonding. And it's just a good
yeah,
time, and stuff like that. So it's looking for the opportunity of like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do positive this day that I can do about?
yeah. So hey, Josh, you're gonna appreciate this from a sports background. I decided today, I was talking to oh my gosh, yes, earlier my interview. Oh my gosh, Diane Murray Flack, and I said to her, I go, we were talking about winning during this COVID crisis, and I said we all are going to get participation medals for sure during this. No, this is not one of those that we don't get a participation medal, because the reality is we are getting participation medals every single
Absolutely.
day.
There's not anybody. That's one reassuring thing is we're in this together. I haven't met anyone who's like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, I've just been rolling along. What do you mean? You got a little hiccup in life? Like
Right? Yeah,
like we're
exactly.
all we're all in this together. And and we can laugh. I mean, some people it's much more extreme, obviously, right? Some people it's like it's a pretty like dire situation. It's not for me, and I know that it's not for you right now. That kind of thing, and I'm looking forward to the other side of this. I want that participation medal. When you find out who we have to talk to get that, let me know because
Okay. Yeah. I think I
I'm going
may
to
end
take
up
that back.
I may end up making some, and then I'll just distribute them to all my people that come on the air with me. Hey,
There you go.
here's our participation here's our participation medals basically.
Yeah, no, I will take it. I have definitely participated.
Yeah. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt.
Have a great week. Have a great weekend. For us that are the Christian persuasion, this weekend's a big weekend. So, enjoy Easter, enjoy your family. It's obviously different than it normally is on an Easter, but yeah. But take care, man.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
talk
have a great
talk.
week.
Yeah, and we'll talk next week for sure. So, all
Sounds good.
right,
Thank
sounds good,
you.
Josh. All right, thanks. Okay, so this morning I started my day with a Matt's musings. I think that's what I'm calling them. Matt's ramblings, Matt's musings. I think it's Matt's musings because it's an alliteration. Uh, I wanted to let you know a couple of things. One, this little cup right here. It's Stuart Fritchman's birthday today. Happy birthday, Stuart. That's a great thing. Um, the other thing is that I mentioned to Josh this was a little bit more of a tough day, and he also mentioned something that I think is important to bring up, and the fact that I think there's a lot of fatigue going on, a lot of emotional, a lot of physical fatigue. That sometimes when we feel down, sometimes a good night of just relaxation and rest will help. So I encourage you to try to get to bed earlier. I started the day with joy. I hope that you led your day with joy a little bit. I hope you brought it forward for others, for yourself. And it's important. So, you know what? Tomorrow's another day. If you didn't have a great day today, just know that you got another day tomorrow. And tomorrow is the only day. Let's see, what's tomorrow's date? Tomorrow is April 9th, 2020. Yes, there is an actual day and date to that. It's Thursday, April 9th, 2020. That is the only Thursday, April 9th, 2020, that we will get. And so we get a choice, like Josh and I were talking about. We get a choice to figure out what we're doing tomorrow. And I'm going to choose to continue to show up for Central Oregon because I know that you guys deserve it. I know that I'm bringing you content that is at least helpful, and to that one person, that one ripple, that to me is it. If I'm streaming to 100 people, 100,000, for me, ultimately, it is the one person that I reach and I touch in some way. One tip, one thought, whatever it is that I move them to make a difference in their lives. That's great. So have a have a good night. Sleep well. And Matt's musings coming up tomorrow morning around 8 a.m. Thank you all. Appreciate it. And continue to show up for Central Oregon. I can't find my auto button. There we go. Let's try this again. Show up for Central Oregon.